what's happening, and are you bullish or bearish right now, short term, midterm, and long term on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think we're going through a phase transition. Bitcoin's gone through many. Probably the last great one was the start of 2013 when futures arrived with BitMEX, and that changed the complete dynamic of trading. And then the next phase transition was the introduction of institutions in a big way with Microstrategy that led a lot of credibility amongst hedge funds. So we had Ruffer Invest, any number of hedge funds and high net worth people in that space, like Ray Dalio came out and said he was investing. So there was then this validation, so a lot of spot investment from institutions and family offices, which happened in pretty much 2020. And now we're in this phase where I would say another transition where the market's maturing, getting more sophisticated. We've finally got an ETF. Unfortunately, it's a futures-based ETF. We've got significant volume on the CME futures exchange. So we've got very large, I'd say, Wall Street players that trade it on the futures market. And that is having very large influence on the price. And so that last 69,000 top, the market was still accumulating on chain. But that drive down to where we are now, and that was fully from sell down from the futures market. They started selling down while the spot investors were accumulating. And usually in that situation, it's going to resolve one way or the other. And this time, the futures sell pressure overwhelmed the spot buyers, and then they switched to selling. This is the first time that I've seen a significant move of this scale where on-chain lagged. So that's very interesting to me. The top was really from a different market, quite different from tail end of 2020. No matter what the futures markets were selling down on, the tidal wave of money coming in, buying spot, withdrawing into their on-chain wallets, overwhelmed the entire market. So it's interesting now, and it comes in a time where structurally we're a lot stronger than the last top, where the whole thing capitulated under the China sort of mining ban and all this negative ESG narrative. Now it's different. It's just futures selling down while everyone's holding on to their coins. We saw a little bit of hodlers sort of divesting a bit, but nothing major. If you look at that in the macro terms of demand and supply, the guys that have held their coins for a long time, like 5 months or more, they're not selling, right? Like it turns out anyone who's held their coins for 5 months aren't selling. The history shows that they sell once there's profit to be had. Why not, right? You've held your coins for 5 months. You're not going to sell now. So we saw a bit of that selling as we ran up to 69,000. They bought, in the sub 40. They made a nice profit. And the moment we dipped it below the 40,000, they stopped selling, actually, and they started accumulating, actually, as a cohort.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Structurally really strong. We're at peak levels of long-term holders. It's not a bear market if you look at that metric. In the shorter term, we're in a really interesting phase right now where you can look at the strength of the different types of cohorts of investors. You've got swing investors, you've got the hodlers. The hodlers stack, they keep accumulating. Very seldom they divest a little, but there's the speculative guys that buy and sell almost on par. They will zero out. They don't care about the asset, holding it long term. And you can compare their strength of holdings, like are they accumulating, are they dumping? You can measure their strength. Right now they're holding and accumulating, and you can compare that to the price, because there's a very strong correlation between their behavior as holders or sellers and the price, and actually it leads it. The price is sold down so low, and their level of holding hasn't budged that much. And in fact, it's rebounding from a little dip right now. It's put us in a total eclipse of the sun. It doesn't happen very often, but it's happening right now. both of these types of cohorts are at peak levels of holdings versus the price. The differentials at peak, it's like 2 standard deviations from the norm. Last time we were in this zone was in October. Before that, very briefly, was the bottom wick of the COVID crash. Before that was the bottom wick of the 2014 bear market, which happened in January 2015. And before that, it was 2012, when Bitcoin traded at $5 before the 2012-13 bull run that led to $1,200. So in the short phase, we're at kind of a peak oversold. It might take 2 weeks for that to take effect, maybe more, like probably by the end of this month.
What is Willy Woo looking at the most right now?
I'm looking at it's technically called the Bitcoin liquid supply shock oscillator. I'm looking at it right now. It's effectively a demand and supply. So supply shock is badly named because it's not a supply shock. Supply shock is actually a ratio. It runs a ratio of the coins that are not likely to be sold divided by the coins that are likely to be sold. So there's a whole family of supply shock, but you could call that on-chain demand and supply. It's just broadly a category of, wow, how do we do this? Well, I know an idea. How about we, let's say all the coins sitting on exchanges are likely to be sold, and all the coins that are off the exchanges are unlikely to be sold. You run ratio. That's a demand and supply. And so what about the guys that have held their coins for 5 months or more? They're unlikely going to move because they've held for 5 months. All the other guys. So you do that ratio, and that's also a demand and supply. And then now the really juicy stuff is like, let's look at all the wallets and all the addresses and cluster them and look at the behavioral patterns of these investors and name the ones with high precision that don't sell. They just buy. They're like Michael Saylor versus the swing traders, and then you run that ratio. So that one's really timely. You get down to it's 24-hour responsive, and so that's what I really like. That's one I'm looking at because we've got that kind of eclipse moment where we haven't had it since October 2020, and that's one I'm looking at the most. And actually, everything I do now.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.